Good morning, judges. Thank you so much thank you for your time being here with us this morning and for devoting time to this amazing project that the Eisenberg Foundation does. We are Recap Capital, and we're bringing you the Fire District, the newest neighborhood in Chicago. I'm Lucas Subchak. I'm a senior studying finance and real estate.
My name is Dylan Salvigson. I'm a junior studying finance and real estate.
My name is Sebastian Sobchak. I'm a sophomore studying finance and real estate.
My name is Browner Kramer. I'm a junior studying finance and economics.
My name is Brady Pointer, and I'm a junior studying finance.
We want to show you our bold vision for the future of Chicago. Please watch the short video. There has been one guiding principle that we heard from our site visit last month. It's been to make no little plans, but to make big plans. And that's what we've done. We have big plans for the future of the city of Chicago, and that is the Fire District.
So let's dive straight into our site and market analysis. First, I'd like to touch a little bit on the background of the 78 site. It has been a part of Chicago's history for about the past 150 years, serving as a major rail and lumber yard. It even survived the Great Chicago Fire and continued to be an economic gateway, bridging several neighborhoods together. And while the site has sat vacant in recent years, obviously with several projects falling through, the infrastructure surrounding it is still very solid, and the city is actively expanding on it. So what makes this site so special today is it's still that geographical crossroads between several neighborhoods like the South Loop, the Loop, Chinatown, and Pilsen, bridging those all together. It's also what we like to call Chicago's happy hour, since it's a melting pot of all these different cultures in the area, like the Loop's corporate culture, the South Loop's residential growth, and a multitude of other things. It also serves as a major human capital pipeline. There's many local universities, young professionals seeking high-skilled jobs, and affluent households. So that brings us to our key psychographics, which are laptops and lattes and metro renters. So those are, your high-performing families or individuals who are pursuing high-skilled jobs and, prefer the urban amenities and convenience. And in addition to that, 23% of South Loop households and 33% of West Loop households earn over $200,000 annually. So that's a huge pool we can tap into for our luxury amenities we will be providing. And we also want to tap into the nightlife and sports crowd that will be supported by the advent of the Chicago Fire Soccer Stadium coming in spring of 2028. So for our SWOT analysis, some strengths. It's river adjacent luxury. There's also TIF-backed infrastructure coming in from the city. So they're funding it. It's at no cost to us. So that includes a 2-story parking podium, as well as some CapEx on the Metro and the Red Line. And in addition to that, our weaknesses, which my colleagues will touch on how to mitigate these later, are things like the phasing complexity, since we are doing this build in 2 phases, as far as timeline goes, and also the necessity of a multi-buyer exit, as this is a mixed asset portfolio and we'll have to piecemeal it off on the exit. Some opportunities are ESG capital access, as well as student-driven demand and West Loop spillover. And some threats are obviously rising interest rates, just like with any property or development. And in addition to that, stadium timing complexity as far as construction goes. And obviously the stadium is the catalyst for all of this. It has 22,000 seats, and they will host over 80 events per year. And according to a JLL report, retail sites that sit adjacent to stadiums like this one trade at a 15 to 25% valuation premium on the exit. And obviously this impacts rents positively as well, and coincidentally our returns. So that brings us to mobility. The 78 site has great access to all the major expressways. We also have an MSA in the works, or a master service agreement with the Roosevelt Collection, which will provide us 550 parking stalls. So obviously that offloads a lot of our parking requirement risk. And in addition to that, there's major connectivity to the Red Line and the Metro. Major expressway access. And this chart is showing new office construction in the area. As you can see, since COVID, it has steeply declined. There's almost no new office coming online in the near future. So we see that as a huge opportunity, especially because according to our research, there's several Class A tenants who are looking for a new office to call their home. So we'd like to capitalize on that with our 178 office tower we will be developing. But the scarcity doesn't just stop at office. There's also 0 competing Class A residential builds within the immediate area. So we'd like to capitalize on that with our rail yard multifamily buildings. And in addition to that, while there are amenities in the area, not all of them are very accessible to residents of the local area. So we want to really be that one-stop shop, the work, live, play environment for all the surrounding neighborhoods like the Loop and Chinatown, and we think we can accomplish that.
Now let's get into the vision behind what we're actually building. Just as Dylan said, we see this as a place to live, work, and play for every Chicagoan. And we understand that every great community is built off of being woven together and not built in isolation. And as shown in our four pillars of development, we are connected by being anchored next to the CTA Red Line and also having close access to the Riverwalk, which will be extended all the way to our site. We achieve inclusivity by our 30% minority and women business-owned commitments for retail, as well as 20% affordable housing so that everybody can enjoy this great project. Our retail in form of Canalport Market and the Depot, as well as our activated green space, as shown in the pitch, is something that really brings the entire project together and gives life to what we call the Fire District. And sustainability is always on the forefront of our minds. This is something that we want to last to future generations. And as my colleagues will speak on, we have many and numerous initiatives that we will cover during this presentation. So 6.2 acres, 5 assets, all connected by green space. The rail yard, anchors the residential. The Hyatt will capture the hospitality demand. The Canalport Market and the Depot fill the amenity gap. 178 draws the corporate tenant base, and the pitch, 60,000 square feet of activated green space, ties it all together, delivering $34.5 million of gross revenue. So this pitch, spoken a lot about it. It's not just a green field. It's not just a plain piece of grass. It truly is a backyard and a built-in amenity space for every single building on the property. From food trucks and pop-up shops to tailgates before games and trunk-or-treating in the fall, this is the heartbeat of the entire project, as you will see. So the rail yard delivers 245 units with 20% affordable housing and first floor retail at South Loop prices, but with luxury level amenities with a rooftop pool, luxury gym, shared co-working space, but again, the greatest amenity, having that backyard in the pitch. Hyatt at the 78, rounding off phase 1 of development, Hyatt being the official Chicago Fire sponsor, is a 200-key boutique hotel positioned to capture more than those 80 events that we spoke about earlier that the stadium is hosting. This isn't just soccer games, this is everything, and we want to make sure our fans and fanatics that come and visit, we want them to have a place where they can feel welcome in our community. This is the catalyst, and we are capturizing. The Depot serves as the food and beverage and entertainment heart of the entire district. As Nike, as their target retail lifestyle tenant, and being able to capture that direct foot traffic from the Chicago Fire Stadium, literally opening up onto our front lawn, we see this as an unmistakable opportunity. Canalport Market solves a real and documented problem. There is a food access gap in the near south side of Chicago. So this food and beverage centered asset serves the citizens of 78, Pilsen, and Chinatown simultaneously and fills that food access gap. So we don't just see this as being a passive play where people come, just people in the rail yard. This is a daily driver of foot traffic and something that brings together the entire community. 178, it delivers over 50,000 square feet of office and ground floor retail. Everybody knows, I'm not going to ignore the elephant in the room, that office is speculative. But from our research, like Dylan mentioned, we have heard multiple Class A tenants that are in these boutique 80s, these aging buildings in downtown Chicago looking for new space. And we are delivering with trophy class, grade A+ amenity rich space, office space, to fill and capitalize on the corporate gold mine that is our area. So the construction is delivered into 2 phases. The phase 1 delivers the green space, the pitch as 60,000 square feet of activated green space. The Hyatt to capitalize on the inaugural season of the Chicago Fire and welcome our fans, as well as the rail yard, the multifamily and retail to serve as a built-in customer base for the retail and office coming in phase 2 in form of the Depot, the Canalport Market, and 178. In year 10, we will be selling off 5 assets via release prices from their debt structure to sector-specific funds and REITs in order to compress exit cap rates and eliminate that discount that we so often see with single buyer purchases of these giant mixed-use districts. And in year 10, we want to give back to the people of Chicago. So the heartbeat of the district, the pitch, the activated green space will be donated to the city and the people of Chicago.
Now for the financial analysis. We've surpassed all LP requirements with an equity multiple of 4.13, an LP IRR of 16.17, a stabilized yield on cost of 9.46, a debt yield of 17.28, and a DSCR multiple of 1.64. Our construction timeline is projected to take 12 months for phase 1 and for phase 2. Our lease up will complete in 17 months for phase 1 and 14 months for phase 2. Our total construction cost is $330 million, $7 million of which is dedicated towards our pre-construction budget in order to get from day one of close to the day that we break ground and make sure that there's no surprise costs that will require additional capital calls from our LP investors. We also are targeting stabilization occupancies of 95% for multifamily, 78% for hospitality, retail for 90%, and office at 85%. For our sustainable initiatives, as Sebastian and Dylan said, we want the fire district to be here for our kids, their kids, for Chicagoans for decades to come. In order to do this, we're dedicating nearly $11 million in both hard and soft costs for these initiatives. And this again is driven by our goal of doing big plans, not little plans. We want this to be here for generations. For our public initiatives, we secured or will secure a equity check of $16.3 million in LIHTC. Again, that's coming from our 20% affordable housing at 60 to 80% of AMI. We also looked into getting TIF grants and new market housing tax credits, but due to economic constraints on the property, we were unable to get that. As for a capital stack, we have phase 1 and phase 2 construction loans. These will be refinanced at phase stabilization. And also we can sell out of these permanent loans using our calculated release prices, ensuring that we can sell at the most compressed cap rate possible. The rest of the capital stack is made up of our LP, sponsor, and LIHTC equity.
So that brings us to risk and execution. It's no secret that with a development at this scale, there are going to be risks involved. What sets Recap Capital apart is our ability to mitigate those risks all the way from the pre-construction phase until we reach stabilization. Our first risk would be the zoning and entitlement risk, which is low because we're in complete compliance with the plan development, guiding off of all the principles that it listed, including the height requirements, any infrastructure. We basically designed our development with that in mind. And that brings us to our infrastructure cost risk, which is also low because we have secured the $551 million allocation between the City of Chicago, that TIF, and the 78, which minimizes any subgrade construction costs that we might have throughout the entire process. And as Sebastian talked about as well, we also have the mixed use exit discount risk, which is mitigated from our disposition strategy that he talked about, which is to subdivide off each asset and sell them individually so that we have a more favorable cap rate. And then as an event-driven site, there also is going to be a parking cost risk as there is in most major metros, but that risk is mitigated because of the proposed MSA that we have between the Roosevelt Collection and us, which actually gives us 550 stalls of parking, leaving us in a surplus of 24 stalls according to our feasibility studies. And that takes us to our construction and phasing, which is timed in respect to the 2028 stadium opening for the Chicago Fire. We have, in pre-construction, we'll obtain the final plat of the subdivision. We'll be executing the MSA that we just talked about, as well as any finalizing the designs and permits. We also expect to have been awarded for the low-income housing tax credit as well. We'll begin construction in 2027, which will provide 400 construction jobs immediately. And then our lease-up schedule is from 2028 to 2030. You can go to the next slide. And we have up to 2 months of free rent initiatives between all of our assets, which is going to lead to faster stabilization and earlier cash flows, especially with our 20% affordable units that will be cash flowing almost immediately because they'll fill up. And also our open space will be available, which is going to drive early economic activity, leading to anticipation for the rest of the development moving on into our,
Now let's talk about some of the values besides just the concrete building and the metal slabs that you see on these buildings that we've developed. Now the fire district develops value across multiple dimensions. For the community value, we're pledging 20% for affordable units, walkable designs, open green spaces, and low barriers for local small businesses. For the city of Chicago, we're bridging the submarket, creating a total of 1,100 jobs and a year-round activated destination. And then finally, for our investors, we're having a fully entitled plan development, diversified income streams, and a positive LP split. So this is a deal as you can see, that works for everybody across the table. And while amenities are wonderful and great to have, our focus has been on sustainability, and that's been a driver in our development since the beginning. And so we're really excited about the $10.7 million in green building initiatives, as well as the LEED Silver certifications for all apartments. Some of the things we've implemented into our developments have been EV infrastructures, green roofs, and energy efficient systems, just to name a few. This is not just a checkbox or a checklist, but this is a necessity and a priority to ensure the sustainable future of our children and their children, because we want to make Chicago a place for everyone to enjoy. We've built sustainability in this development since day one and look to continue to further that for years to come. So the question that we're left with is, why the Fire District exactly? Well, the Fire District is the only river adjacent luxury development through 2028 where we inherit a massive TIF and planned development, and is secured, backed by capital, and has a clear path to institutional exit. This is not just another Chicago development that you see outside, but one that we hope Chicagoans and people coming into our city can live and reside for the rest of their life. And with that, we'd like to give a big thank you and a shout out to everyone that's helped us through our development and through our process. And then a special thank you as well to our faculty advisor, Allison Pettit, for helping us through the Real Estate Club, and then just coming out here and supporting us throughout this process. And with that, Recap Capital would like to open the floor with any questions. Thank you.
Josh? Yeah, you can start. Okay. Well, so just a couple comments. Great job, you guys, and you have really good. I can tell you've been working in your presentation skills because you guys nailed it. It was excellent. And I just want to point out too. So there's 77 neighborhoods in Chicago. This is the 78th. So I think you guys did a really good job in kind of defining it as the 78th neighborhood. So if you move on, I would kind of focus on that too, because that is truly what this is, and you guys have designed that neighborhood as well. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about just the practicalities of stuff, and one other thing, you also included the MWBE at 3010, which was great. A couple of people missed that, so I think that was great that you guys you're hitting all those metrics there. You had mentioned giving back the pitch to the city of Chicago. How does that work?
Right, so over the course of our entire development, the pitch, it's seen more as an amenity for every building. So its cash flows aren't really generating us anything that would provide a return. At the time of release, after every asset has been sold, we will then kind of outline the entire plot that it sits on and donate it back to the city.
So who runs it?
The city.
So park districts?
Yes. And that would be for them to, again, take on what we have there already with the food trucks, with vendors that we have already modeled out. Also, there's opportunities for holiday events and other holidays throughout the year for them to generate additional revenue to pay for the operation.
And it goes back to what you said, like this is the 78th neighborhood. We are making that, so we want to incorporate everything. And that pitch, we believe that after our 10-year hold, which is conservative, we've established kind of the purpose of it in the community, and then we're comfortable handing it off so it can be continued.
It's a great idea. The only thing I would just say, when it goes to park districts, they have hours of limit, so they close at 10.
I got you.
So if you're living at, you kind of lose some of that
Okay.
free flowing use of it. So just because they've got to maintain it,
Right.
they've got to clean it and all that other stuff. So sometimes it loses a little bit of that sense of it. So, but great job. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to commend the team on a very detail-oriented presentation that's really rooted in Chicago's history and fabric.
Yep.
Daniel Burnham was a legend, and that quote still rings true today. It's something I think about from time to time and probably should think about more. A great job on focusing on the multi-use exits. A complicated property like this, there's very little to almost no demand for selling this as a whole. So really good job on focusing on selling it off and its different components. And then really good job in being detail oriented, getting all the way down to shared parking agreements. That just shows your dedication to detail. For someone who's worked on shared parking agreements, they're not the most fun to work on, but very important. So a couple of different questions in different directions. Can you recap how you guys calculated your exit value, the cap rates you used for the different components, and then how that compares to total development cost?
Yeah, so we took the cap rates that we had found from different forecasts, and making sure that they're realistic. We don't want to say we're selling at a 3 cap or whatever. And also we're taking into account time, because it is 10 years out, so we wanted to be very conservative in any forecast that we did.
It's going to go to the release price of appendix.
Yeah. And then what we did was we calculated based on year 11 NOI for each property, and then just divided it out, I believe.
There it is. Up.
Yeah, so we calculated then based on future year 11 NOI for each property. And then for the release prices, we did a percent of LA calculation on whatever the loan balance was at for that year, to calculate the premium of getting out of those phase loans and selling the properties individually.
Yeah, one thing I would suggest is to speak with some other lenders or debt capital market providers. Sometimes 115% loan release provision can be on the loan side. But again, that's very inside baseball.
Okay.
I'm actually doing that right now.
Okay.
with this property.
Just quick question,
yes.
like what is usually the range for that?
I've seen it all the way up to 150%.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially today,
Yeah.
if there's an office component. One thing I would also, just focus on is just creating downside scenarios in case treasuries in the future sit at 4 to 5%. Just apply a reasonable 200-300 basis point premium, just to see what exit value would look like, just in case whatever exit cap you're using, may not happen at that time. So fast forward into the future, you've constructed it, it's generally on budget, you delivered the construction on time. Out of all the components, which two do you see as being the highest risk for not meeting the NOI projections?
I would say in terms of the asset classes, I would say our retail and our office. We were very conservative, again, with our assumptions on that, but our margins weren't where they wanted to be. So going forward, just based on our projections, we think that if there were any hiccups along the way, those would probably be hit first, just based on our original projections.
And it would be the Canalport retail, the one that is not closest to the stadium, and the 178 office, which is adjacent to that. But I'd like to say that we are confident with our assumption that the office will lease up due to our research and due to Kyle Matthews, CEO of Matthews Real Estate Investment Services. He said something that I agree with. Class A, trophy class A plus, a new construction and big MSAs is a generational opportunity. And from my research, I believe I agree with that statement, and I believe that our conservative kind of layout of the office, as well as the richness of the amenity, will prove to be useful.
How big was Canalport?
Canalport Market was it's about 70,000 square feet. I think it's just north of that, and we modeled it off of Pier 17 in New York. So we want it to be that open market concept. We have 20% common space for the vendors. So we have a first floor ground boutique grocery.
50,000 square feet.
That's indoor
I mixed up.
leasable area.
Yeah.
So the outdoor. Yeah. So we want like the first floor ground grocery. We want them to be able to go there and then go upstairs and shop. And then on the third floor, pickleball. Like we want it to be an entire location for families to come and enjoy the common space as well.
And that's where I think some of the assumptions on our margins were compressed, because we're putting so many amenities into that. So that's where we really want to have that be a driver for the area, and then our higher margins on the hotel and the residential really kind of feed off of that.
Great. So if we were to invest in this project, a lot of our limited partners or potentially lenders are Chicago-based, are very familiar with these types of uses in Chicago. One of the uses that's historically struggled in Chicago is multi-story retail in urban environments. There's a couple different examples of that. So what gives you guys the confidence that this 3-story retail won't follow that pattern?
We think that again, we were very conservative. We originally were thinking of 4 to 5 stories, but we heard from industry professionals to keep it below 3 or 3 or below. So that's where we kind of stuck with it. And also, it's not very extensive floor plates for the retail. So we think that it's more condensed and all kind of fit neatly together and has, like, obviously it's 3 floors, but it integrates well. It doesn't feel like 3 distinct floors. It's more integrated, as we can show from the pictures of our renderings. Kind of that is the imagination of, you know, an open environment. So yes, there is that 3 floors and maybe 1 floor to 2 floors would be perhaps more ideal, but I think with our setup, the way we envision it, it kind of accounts for that and builds more of a unified environment.
And the retail buildings, we increased the floor to ceiling height to 15 feet and 6 inches, and we have in the depot, it's experiential on the upper floors. So we have a lot of like activity based retail, and that was something that we heard from, like you said, from our industry professional, like that might not lease. So we knocked it down. We made it more of an experience, something that's open, something that you don't feel like you have to go up multiple flights of stairs to go to the next door.
Great, last one for me. This one is pretty technical. So for the pitch, you guys, I think you guys noted that you were underwriting a certain amount for activation fees or sponsorship revenue. What's that number, and is it included in your exit value?
Yeah, so I'll jump ahead to the pro forma for the pitch. It was right here. So with the pitch, we are having it as a loss leader. So we want it to be something that brings a community together, as Sebastian said. So we're making that investment really in the community. And when on exit, it's not calculated in the final exit. If we did calculate it somehow, we would obviously increase our exit value. But again, we see the pitch as a park for everybody and not really a revenue generator. It's more of a completion, the last piece of the puzzle for the whole development.
And this is the one that's being deeded to the
Yeah,
city.
Correct.
So there's no value ascribed to it.
Correct.
No,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, my one suggestion on that one, if you move forward, you think about this more, is I like the idea of deeding it back to the city. They would like that. I think you want to retain control of it though, because it's going to continue to be your front door. So you don't have to rely on the city doing anything, frankly. You want it to be what you want it to be.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, while deeding it back, I think makes a ton of sense. Retaining control and being able to really program it and understand what's going on there is going to be really important for you guys. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.